go for. But the Kindred ban is very, very curious to me here now. They're kind of saying, look, we don't think that you're going to go for something there, but maybe Cassante and Methelios again. Do they try and just run it back with, you know, slightly different bans?
But having this Cassante in the pockets of Ultra Prime, which isn't going to get locked in as it is going to be their failures 2 games in a row for the side of Doggo, just lock in the Nautilus. You want to fight fire with fire, play throughout that early game, and really depend on SwordArt landing those Qs exactly like how On was able to set up for his own ADC. But yeah, the Cassante does get locked in for the side of Ultra Prime, which I really enjoy because this is a champion that can realistically be flexed to either mid lane or top. And I think Forge, if he is given a champion like this, he's going to have a much better time, or at least surviving in that mid lane. But BLG, they're going to take a different approach in this game to go for something more scaling with the Lulu for On. But I think the biggest question is Ultra Prime going to lock in Blitzcrank and really force those flashes out extremely early in the game?
I mean, if they're able to get it, they do get the Annie as well. The Lulu Zeri being locked in here for BLG, still getting themselves a very, very powerful bot side that can do so much. And now we get to see the priorities in the bans coming out here. I will say Ultra Prime can start putting pressure onto Shun in this particular game if they want to. They will have the first rotation of pick once these bans are done, but see what they end up kind of going for right now. It's a difficult one to really know how you want to try and bring this one out. And again, I like what they're doing here though as well. I like the fact they're saying, look, we just don't want, we want Hery to be able to have a decent laning phase, and the Malphite just mitigates this Cassante's powers too much.
This time around, the Gwen has been let open by BLG, so if Hery wants to go for that counter pick, I'm sure that Bin is just going to Giga Blind something like the Jax or Gwen in towards that top side and make Shun make up for that lack of engage that BLG so desperately need, or at least some follow-up CC to Yagao's Nico, but we will have to kind of wait until we get to that point. But yeah, Ultra Prime, I mean, I would love to see a carry jungler for Ning in this game too. Maybe something like the Nocturne when you are able to hit that level 6, you just start forcing the side lanes where Ultra Prime already having this affiliates, meaning that they can force CC onto the bottom lane of BLG with that Gravitum gun.
Where they want to try and bring this like, you know, next few picks is the real question right now. The Wukong taken off the board means that, again, Ning kind of looking towards it, maybe going back towards that Nocturne. I wouldn't mind it, to be perfectly honest, with the Annie and the Cassante. It does very well at just kind of isolating targets, blowing them up, and maybe going for something a little bit more crazy. But going back maybe towards the Rakan here for SwordArt, something they can do. They know they're not going to have as bad of a laning phase this time around because they're not coming up against a Nautilus. They're not coming up against a hard CC champion, you know, in the BLG bot lane, because it is the Lulu locked in already. And now we get to see where the jungle and solo lane of BLG are going to be going. Bin does tend to get a fair bit of priority in the draft phase from BLG. But as of late, he has kind of fallen down the wayside and kind of given himself a little bit more of a kind of facilitating role.
Yep, and that does signify if the Sejuani gets locked in, no, it is going to be the Kha'Zix in the hands of Shun, as I believe it is 1-1 so far in the summer split, but if I'm not wrong, his first game on this Kha'Zix, he went 12-1, so he is an absolute menace if he does get those kills in early. But it is going to be a Gwen locked in for Bin, as I expected, because he is feeling as confident as ever with that Cassante showing very early on for the side of Ultra Prime, so he's looking for that side lane pressure. But BLG, their only hard cease, or at least setup for these major team fights, is going to be on Yagao, and something that worries me is that when you don't have that flash available for this champion, it is pretty hard to get your hands onto the enemy team, especially when if Doggo decides to go cleanse once again, that is going to be a very big change up.
Absolutely. The Viego locked as well here for Ning, but I like that you brought up BLG, and it's something that BLG have been kind of doing for a little while now, to be perfectly honest. They're very, very comfortable just picking out these very hard to execute drafts. They're very, very comfortable kind of saying, look, let's go for it, let's give it a go. We have a 1-game buffer. Even if we lose it, we get the experience regardless of everything else. And honestly, do love seeing that kind of a style coming out from a team that's so far, you know, kind of so far been able to kind of make a name for themselves of being able to kind of bring out these pocket picks, have the Gwen be a permaban, because if you don't, it will be picked, it will become a monster, and it will become just such an issue for you, and you will regret that choice. So we'll see, with a lot of damage available here for the side of BLG, can honestly, it's the exact same composition coming out here from Ultra Prime. They're the ones who have kept it as sleek and simple as they possibly can. See if they can maybe execute a little bit better coming into this particular game.
Exactly that. As Ultra Prime doubling down, locking in the same draft to game one, but this time around, BLG locking in strong laners for their individual matchups. Gwen versus K'Sante in that topside bin is feeling extra confident, but my eyes are onto Shun and this Kha'Zix for the game too, as we know that once you get that Youmu's and Umbral Glaive online, I mean, the vision control is going to be absolutely nuts, but Ning fighting fire with fire, picking his carry as well in this Viego, and hopefully we get some early game action out of these two, because I feel like BLG's composition, they locked this in because they have carry potential in every single player for the second game, where they don't have to rely on Elk anymore.
That's kind of the scary thing, is that Elk doesn't even need to be the main focus. Yagao, Shun, Bin, they can all do it as long as... Honestly, I actually think the main focus in these fights should be on this, on the Lulu. I feel like the Lulu being able to kind of facilitate pretty much anybody is a scary thing upon itself, but we will have to wait and see. We are jumping onto the Rift for our second game of this series. Could potentially be our final game of the night. As BLG look to continue themselves to a 4-0 start, would be a very, very good start for them in this split. And again, they haven't had the biggest of lineups. They've gone against, I think, they started off against OMG, 2-0'd that. They then went 2-1 against RA. They then went 2-1 against EDG. So it's kind of been an on and off kind of, you know, tough top 4 team, bottom 4 team, top 4 team, bottom 4 team. And then the next week or so, they don't play until week 3. They have AL, TT, and then they have JDG, a rematch of the LPL finals, a rematch of the MSI finals once more. And we'll see if they've learned as much as we think they have coming into that particular matchup.
Yeah, I do want to credit BLG. I mean, although they have dropped games to some unexpected teams, BLG having that security in the early game and being so extremely consistent with finding those early game leads, especially through picks from Shun and on, is their best quality of life. But talking about this game, we have a ward spotting our Ning, starting his own blue buff, but that is going to really help Shun to maybe go for some potential invades toward that top side and bully Ning out of his own jungle. As my point still stands, if Ning safely gets to level 6 without dying one time, I think Ultra Prime, they're very happy with that. But also highlighting this top lane matchup, it's Bin's first Gwen game of the summer split.
Yeah, he's had it banned against some pretty damn consistently. I'm not exactly sure of the exact stats behind that, but definitely feels like something that we've been seeing a hell of a lot going up against this BLG squad. I think first a look at it, yeah, overall. Yeah, just checked it myself as well. 63% there, alongside the likes of like the Zeri and the Gnar. Does feel like he's just able to kind of bring it in, but ooh, we're gonna see some isolated damage coming out here now. Shun putting in some work here onto Ning. Doesn't know exactly where he's gone though, and that's the big question for Ning, is that he needs to try and find ways of making sure he doesn't get isolated by this Kha'Zix. And this is something that we haven't really seen from a lot of Kha'Zix in the LPL, that finding those kind of 1v1s to make it so that, you know, they get the passive and the unseen threat, and of course the isolation damage.
It's easy to invade, especially when you have a winning top and mid lane matchup. So Shun, he is going to have a banger of a time bullying Ning out of his own jungle, as I believe this Kha'Zix was only a few seconds away from contesting that red buff. Ning was able to secure it with his own smite, but taking both the Raptor camp and this Krug camp from this Viego is really going to deny his full clearing ability. Force Flash out of Shun, just a little bit too confident in terms of his play, but I don't think he's going to be too mad about taking both of these camps away.
Yeah, he's actually going to jump straight back in and just put some more damage there down onto Ning. Make sure Ning knows what's going on, knows what's happening there. Shun just being a nuisance, to be perfectly frank about the whole thing. Just making sure that Ning is not able to have any kind of major impact. But Ning does get himself right down back towards his scuttle and should be able to take this. And honestly, should be able to take back the Raptors as well. So not going to be the worst trade-off in the world here for the Ultra Prime jungle.
Doggo's so low. No pot either, so... It must have been just trading from On's little Lulu, as we also have a very nice ward placing that river, so it does deny Ultra Prime's jungler from visiting towards his bottom side. But like you said, securing that Raptor camp, getting a little bit of a revenge counter jungle for Ning. But we need Ultra Prime to fasten up the tempo, especially within SwordArt, getting those flashes offline before these major objectives, so Forge can secure that CC onto the enemy team.
See Forge get hit by the Tangle Barb, and Flash comes in here from Yagao, recognizing he didn't have any mana. That's just a really good opportunistic moment there from Ning to burn a summoner from the mid laner of BLG. Nicely done by him. You see now, again, you've had a lot of early game kind of skirmishing in this bot side. SwordArt taking a huge chunk there onto his health bar. That means he has to back away completely. I said that there wasn't that much threat in that bot side going into the Rakan, into the Lulu, but I think On's making me rethink that statement.
Yeah, I believe the last time we saw On play the Lulu, he had 4 kills in his own pockets. He was just flashing in, autoing everyone, and doing a lot of damage for an early game Lulu. But he's not afraid to continue his aggressive playstyle even when given Enchanted Champions, as we see Xun hovering towards his bottom side. I think if SwordArt wasn't poked out, it would have been a angle for Ning to kind of look for a gank towards his bottom. But just from the 2v2 isolated matchup, it already seems like Doggo and SwordArt, they are struggling to at least go even in this bottom lane.
Definitely pushing for it, and now with the Dragon kind of the focus here, resets coming across the board for the BLG bot lane, and of course the jungle as well, means that this is going to be a pretty easy take for Ultra Prime. They kept their bot lane out for a little bit longer. It does mean that you are looking at a probably a much more skewed reset here for Doggo. It means he's going to be a little bit further behind the reset timer. Might lose a wave or so. There's no way On steals this. No, he's not even going to attempt. Sorry, the way that the observers were looking at that, I was like, did they know something we don't know? Because they were hovering as if the little waddling Yordle was going to be able to come up with something big out of nowhere. But just drops a ward, gets confirmation that that was being taken, and we can see the invade coming in here from Xun, just making sure that he gets as much out of that trade as possible.
Hery needs to be careful here. Xun is around the corner, so if he gets too low, it is just going to result in a dive, as we have Ning walking towards that bottom side, trying to force something out of the Zeri and Lulu. But we've been highlighting this for the past 5 minutes, that BLG, they can play through their top lane or their bottom lane. But both of these champions, great scaling ability towards that late game, so they can and be very happy with how this game has begun, with a very slow start for both of these teams.
Very small tempered aggressions coming out here from Xun, but outside of that, not really a huge amount else. We will see the Tibbers get dropped on top of Yagao. He's going to walk away from the very angry bear. That's just what Andy does. That's why Andy ends up having a boat ton of damage dealt once the game gets into the later stages of the game, because she just drops her Tibbers literally every 50 seconds.
Love that.
Feels like, but yeah, it's a fun interactive experience. But Ning has found himself behind the bot side, On moving forward to try and stop SwordArt from getting engaged. They are seeing the mist, and Ning now recognizing he's not really in a great spot. You do have level 6 though for the AD carries, and that's what makes this dive a little bit scarier. Normally the jungler should feel confident and emboldened even to move forward, but knowing that lightning crash could come in at any second, definitely something to back themselves away from.
Yeah, I mean, Ultra Prime, they had Ning in the back, but SwordArt missing that initial engage from this Rakan just meant they had to cut the play very fast. Elk is just dodging these extremely well, as all SwordArt needs is to land one CCW onto the enemy team, proc that Glacial, and really catch the bottom lane of BLG off guard. But Xun notices this, and he is going to get both the red buff and the Rift Herald, and most likely place it towards that top side and make Bin ahead on this Gwen.
I mean, Bin is already kind of ahead, 20 CS, picking up a plate of his own. I think if he resets and goes bot, I think that's exactly what he's going to do. Get this Zeri going, get that right up into the bot lane, and kind of say, look, now this Zeri is impossible to deal with versus a Gwen that's already kind of making their advantage. And again, yes, Ultra Prime got the Dragon, very good to them, but it's a 2,000 gold lead still in favor of BLG, as we see maybe them going for something here. W over the wall. Does not mean that they, or does mean that they're able to get their AD carry to safety and not having to lose any summoners, but again, just really, really good play coming out here from BLG. And again, their comp is harder to execute, but if they do execute on it, it can be devastating for the side of Ultra Prime. Oh no, Doggo. Doggo.
Doggo should be fine, I think, as we have Shun, like you said, wanting to place his Rift Herald to free up both the Zeri and the Lulu to rotate around the map and get those major objectives at least priority towards those objectives. But I think leaving Bin and Hery in an isolated matchup towards that top side is what BLG is looking to do, keeping that tower alive so Gwen can just always get that CS lead. But we do have Tibbers being dropped in the mid lane once again. Something that I don't think any players do enough, which is exactly what Forge is doing, is just dropping the Tibbers off cooldown. Having that poke, look, Yagao's already forced to kind of play a little bit more safe in this mid lane, being half HP, which doesn't allow for that lane party for Jun to work off. Did he just jump into the wall?
Possibly. It's hard to tell. Hard to tell sometimes, but we are going to see 2 more plates being taken in this bot side. It should be a pretty easy crash in here for Shelly, and a good little dodge back here from Elk to make sure he does not lose out on any kind of those trades. But now Forge is a little bit isolated. Gonna have to flash, but the Pop Blossom is good. The claws come out, and BLG Shun gets himself the first blood.
Flash is committed from Yagao as well, trading flash for flash, but like you said, Forge just getting caught a little bit out of position with the amount of vision control that On has been able to secure throughout this river. And also the Umbral Glaive coming online for Shun does mean with that zombie ward, they are going to have so much priority towards this bottom side with the dragon spawning in 30 seconds. But no flash available on the hands of this Annie, so I'm not too sure how Ultra Prime is going to look towards this second dragon for them. But they did deny the first one, so it isn't going to be a 27-minute soul dragon like game 1.
No, not quite this time around. I love how Bin just completely ignored Hery in that exchange. Like, Hery threw everything at him, and Bin was just like, I have a minion wave, thank you very much, to take away here with the Riftmaker already in hand and a 20 CS lead. Cannot blame him with the Umbral Glaive. Shun knows that he is perfectly in the darkness to be able to take away this dragon here and get themselves up to a 1-1 scoreline. But now Ning moving forward might want to go for something here. No Pop Blossom available. I'm going to TP in as well. This might just be a full retreat. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what Ultra Prime thought they were going to be able to get. Nobody's checking the pit either. So Shun, happy to kind of just walk out of this one here, take away a ward as well. I mean, it's similar to game number 1 with Ultra Prime, where I'm kind of thinking, yes, I like the idea, but your execution's either just not quite there or just the timing's just way off.
I can kind of see the approach that Ultra Prime was trying to look for around that dragon. They were trying to force a fight onto the enemy team, giving that dragon away, but potentially looking for some pickup kills towards that bottom side. But we didn't see the engage from SwordArt onto On. I mean, he was just walking up to both Ning and SwordArt, clearing a ward right in front of them. And this Rakan and Vio kind of just watched this Lulu take everything in front of them. So a bit of hesitation coming out of the Ultra Prime roster once again, as we have the TP burnt from Hery while Bin was just sitting in that top side. He dodged it!
He dodged it, but now the Ghost comes out. Gravitum gets put on the Shun, so he can't get any kind of real trade back. But do you really want this fight? Elk does. He goes so aggressive into a 1v3 scenario because he does not care. He's going to be able to kill them all, even flashes to try and find SwordArt. Elk wants this game done and buried. He is not willing to wait for anyone to tell him to go.
I mean, that is another 2 kills going into the pockets of Shun, and like you said, Elk doesn't care or have a single care in the world, just having that flash over the wall, trying to pick up the final one. But BLG, as aggressive as ever, and they're the ones initiating these team fights.
Again, just great here from BLG. You know, not getting the same explosive start as we saw in game number 1, but just a really nice move here from On. Just about sidestepping it. Really nicely done. And I mean, look at Elk right now. He goes, I've got Triforce, it's time to go. And he just gets a 3-man lightning crash. The health bars are already so low. I mean, what can you do here as Ultra Prime?
It's crazy to think that my biggest critique for BLG's team composition is that they don't have enough setup when Yagao isn't included in the fight. But Elk just said, screw it, I'll be the engage, I'll E in and ulti everyone and kill everyone off. I mean, that's Shun's 1Q and SwordArt's dead.
SwordArt is dead, but can Bin take a 1v2? That's the question. Honestly, I think he can. He's going in. Snip, snip, snip. Gwen was the doll of the wife of Yagao's dead queen. She's coming back for a little bit of revenge. Doggo trying to take a 1v1 underneath the tower. I don't know how safe he is. And yeah, On is keeping them away. On is stopping them from getting the resets down. Shun pushing in the wave. Ning trying to go a little bit away. They're going to get the TP in as well. They're going to try and kill off the wave just before it crashes. But here's the Pop Blossom. Ning going to get isolated out and taken down by Shun. Now the quickness comes in onto Bin. Forge is already TP'd back into the fight. He died only to come back to maybe die again. Elk comes in, trying to see if he can join in on top of this. They're just bullying Ultra Prime. This isn't fair. This isn't fun right now. And BLG, they thought about maybe backing away from this. It's like, should we leave it alone? Should we let it go? No, let's make it bigger and let's add ourselves 5 members on the top side. A flash in to kill off the Lulu. They'll get the lightning crash coming in over the wall as the Cassante is next to fall down. Forge gets taken out. SwordArt will follow and 3 kills for 3. It's messy, but BLG are having fun.
What did it cost, Oisin? It costed a 3 for 3 in this top side, also securing that top tier 1 tower, and of course, this priority over the Rift Herald. But that was a very drawn out tower dive, which was pretty well done by Ultra Prime, as Forge sitting on that Tibbers and Flash available, catching off off guard. But we have another solo kill in this mid lane as Doggo doesn't have that Flash available.
Yep. Doggo died. Honestly, Ning, I don't think you can fight this. Yes, you may be able to find it with the Cassante, but even then, I have my questions. I have my questions. Snip. Ning, can he be able to get it? Snip, snip. Ooh. Not quite able to get it done, but that was close. On now, maybe the potential target. 2 more people coming on the back of this one here. Forward seeing if he can maybe get on top of him, but not quite in range to drop down the Tibbers. It's getting a little bit loose. It's getting a little bit wild. As Ultra Prime are picking up a couple of scraps. They are still 6,000 gold down. With Dragon in 30 seconds, I don't think they can contest.
I think the best way to describe BLG, or at least BLG games, is that they're just pure fun to experience.
Absolutely.
They are just having so much fun on the Rift, just forcing fights over and over as we take another look at this replay. But with, of course, them getting that pick from the previous one, I believe it was a Ning on the Viego, it was just a numbers advantage from the very beginning as Doggo desperately trying to at least get a tower in that mid lane. But he wasn't able to secure that as we do have the bottom lane of BLG falling down, but isn't going to be enough because they're not going to be able to translate these kills into more than just kills.
That's it. It's like you're getting kills, but are you able to turn it into anything else? And unfortunately for Ultra Prime, they're kind of dealing with the fact that, yes, we can just get a couple of scraps and we're happy with that because 2 items onto Shun. I believe he's 6-1 now or something like that. Maybe 7-1. I'm not quite sure exactly where he is, but Smite comes in from Ning. He does end up picking up that one for himself. But yeah, I mean, 6-1, there it is. And Dustblade of Drakkar already finished up as well. He is going to destroy any Aphelios that tries to walk up on top of this. And Elk, Elk is just fearless, is the only way I can put it. Just absolutely fearless, moving forward, knowing that he's just not going to be able to be taken out. Go on, Yagao.
Genuinely think you need 3 people to kill this Hery. As we have the Rift Herald dropped for BLG working towards his bottom side. Forge doesn't have the TP, so their most reliable engage within the Annie isn't here. We haven't seen a single engage from SwordArt, at least proactive gameplay out of this Rakan, so I'm very surprised that Ultra Prime, they decided to default back to the exact same draft and specifically towards his bottom side because we see a very common force of engage in that early game through the Gravitum and of course the follow-up from the Rakan hitting that Glacial as well, which does result in some flashes being burnt, but we didn't see that in this game, and I do really think Ultra Prime, they need to start considering doing that in the future.
I mean,
it's too late now, but still,
gold.
They can consider.
Yeah, it's still, I was gonna say it's 8,000 gold. Like, I don't think BLG care right now, as we do have everyone on this top side. Yagao gonna be the target of this, probably going to die. Pretty damn easy when you throw 3 people into that top side. And BLG do need to be careful that they don't let this game go a little bit too funky. We've seen it a couple of times already. RA is a great example. But the game gets a little bit weird, and now Elk cleanses. He's gonna have to flash. Yeah, see, this is where we start to get a little bit loose and not in a good way. This isn't you kind of having fun. This is you maybe potentially throwing away the game. Now you're no longer got your summoners, and that's a scary position to be in. I don't think it's going to be enough to obviously bring Ultra Prime 100% back into the game, but you got to be aware of those little moments.
Yeah, and that is a very worrying trend for the side of BLG, is that they have been very successful with every single early game when given the situation to kind of enable their carries to do so. But, like you said, we see Elk flashing over the walls where he shouldn't be there. He shouldn't really be challenging the red buff 1v4 style, as I believe it was their series up against RA. Little mistakes like this can draw the game out to 40 minutes, so hopefully BLG, when we approach playoff stage, or at least around the playoffs, they can clean up this act, as we don't want any weaknesses for these top tier teams.
Oh. And look, for BLG, they're having a bit of a happy time. Not really taking as much due care, shall we say, to make sure that they're not getting caught out, kind of uselessly throwing away summoners for a red buff that doesn't really make the biggest difference in the world, because you're not going to be fighting for another 2 minutes. It's going to be gone by then, so we'll see what Ultra Prime can do. They've yet to take a tower in this game. They're eyeing up this mid lane one for the first one for them to really kind of capitalize on. Bin off on a flank, and they're trying to get a TP coming in here from Yagao. Yeah, you're going to get the Pop Blossom onto 4 members. The Cassante goes all out, but only to try and just take out the Nico. Triple kill coming in here for Elk. Can he get anything else off it? Doesn't matter that he goes down, because Shun and On are there to clean it all up. 5 for 3. I think they can maybe take themselves the Baron between the two of them, because they have the damage. But yeah, this is a game that is just going to keep going in the way of BLG. They can keep finding fights like that.
Look, we can trade you Elk in these team fights, but what does that mean? Shun is still 7-1, an absolute menace on this Kha'Zix in game 2. But it does seem like they are going to give up their hopes for soloing the Baron and work towards that Dragon, which is going to be spawning in 50 seconds. But we see a late TP coming out of Forge, as Yagao, he was the one finding that initial flank, and cosplaying as this Kha'Zix, they were able to kind of prank the enemy team into walking towards him, but landing a beautiful Pop Blossom into the backline just set everything off. As you see this once again, cosplaying as a Kha'Zix, gets it onto 3 people and locks down Doggo. But the problem is yes, you commit all your spells from Forge onto the AD carry. There's just so many more carries for the side of BLG in this game too, that it's not enough. And Bin flashing into the wall, it doesn't matter.
And again, we're going to have a little Pop Blossom coming in as we come back in around this fight. Dragon spawning in 10 seconds, but can Yagao survive? That's the real question. The all-out is good, and Yagao does get out in time. Hery has to flash away before anything else, and oh my god! The missiles from Shun, good enough to keep him there, has been onto Doggo. Doggo just hasn't been allowed to play League of Legends today. Just not in any way, shape, or form. He's either being jumped on by Zeri or jumped on by Gwen. And that's the game. 22.5 minutes into the game. It's a full ace. Nobody goes down for the side of BLG. They have plenty of damage. That's a 2-0.
Yeah, BLG being as dominant as ever, finishing off this game 2 in a very similar fashion to game 1. And I can't really fault this team. They just look like they're having the best time on the Rift. And this game 2, Shun takes it away, 9-1.
Yep, 10-1. We'll get him up one more. Just get him in a nice round 10 just to make sure. But 2-0, easy as you like for BLG. They continue their crusade through the LPL. 4-0 now in the regular split. And I mean, the sky's the limit for this team. I think we're all anxiously awaiting how they kind of come in now with this newfound form up against a team that they've only exclusively lost to in this 2023 season in JDG. They'll place them in a week's time.
Yeah, and I think something that is one of their biggest highlights coming into patch 13.10 and this new meta is that Yagao is just such a good Nico. As we keep comparing both of our MSI teams within JDG and BLG, but the biggest difference is that they're willing to just first pick, blind pick that Nico and do wonders with it in the hands of Yagao, as we saw in that final game, looking for those consistent flanks onto the enemy team and just utilizing this pick to its potential. But of course, Shun also being able to play something like the carry is just a perfect duo for Yagao to bounce off with.
Yeah, I mean, this BLG squad is starting to look